Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. Bro show, dad show, actually. Can we call it
That's
now?
right.
No, dad show. All right. I was telling Ryan before, how this guy had 4 of them, I have no idea, including twins. I was like, comforting and taking care of one screaming child is enough, but to have 2 of them there at the same time, they're on different crying schedules and feeding schedules, I think I would actually lose my entire mind. So
I was thinking,
I have so much more respect for you right
I was thinking I can't wait to go toe-to-toe with Saagar because he's going to be so depleted.
Yes, I said yesterday.
It'll be like playing in the NBA when one team has played like 4 games in 5 nights. That's Saagar right
Last
now.
night we had a screamer on our hands.
I'm just running circles around him today.
Yeah, I know. I said yesterday, I said, any bad take that I have for the next year, you can just blame it on sleep deprivation and me being... I tweeted out my health statistics yesterday.
I saw that. That was hilarious.
A lot of people enjoyed that. By the way, it's all worth it. I don't care. But it is funny. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we have in the show today. Let me the show bar, all right? This is the tough part of the show. Los Angeles, we're going to talk about some of the overnight developments there. The big top line news is President Donald Trump mobilizing several hundred United States Marines, active duty service members, sending them to Los Angeles for some sort of law enforcement support mission. There's still a lot of questions surrounding that. We're going to show you some of the video and other things, clashes breaking out between LAPD, between protesters last night. There was some looting as well, so we'll show everybody some of the images. We're going to talk about a little bit of polling. I teased that yesterday. There's been some CBS News, widespread polling about Donald Trump and immigration. This is a big segment of our discussion yesterday with Crystal over the popularity of Trump's program and also just broadly why a lot of this fight is being picked right now. We're going to talk about Palantir. This is a story that I missed, but Ryan, you're really going to be driving this one. This is Laura Loomer is getting involved. Tim Dillon is alleging that there's widespread buying off of influencers regarding Palantir. Yeah, he really is the George Carlin. I think he's the George Carlin of our generation. I said that yesterday. China, we're going to give everybody, and I know this is flying under the radar, but it's tremendously important. United States and China negotiators met in London yesterday just for the second round of trade talks. Everybody's basically on pins and needles on what the hell is going to happen here. The tariffs were off while I was gone. Thank you, President Trump, for removing the crisis that you caused. Many car seat owners, however, have not yet. And, oh, shocker, Ryan, you will be shocked to learn that car seat prices, stroller prices, and all of that did not go down, even though the tariffs went up.
I thought we were going to reshore our stroller manufacturing.
99% of car seats are made in China. Do you know that? 99%.
I think I might have guessed that.
Safety. And also, another thing I learned recently is, these car seats don't even last that long. You can't donate them. Right, like because
it's
look,
a car seat
maybe
mafia, seat cartel.
I think this is too safetyist, but like you can't donate a car seat. I mean, if you're in a car wreck, that's one thing. But if you have a perfectly good car seat, you really can't give it to somebody.
That's
corporate. I think that's nuts.
It's corporate nonsense.
Sorry, I think it's crazy. I'm sure I'm going to have parenting Twitter and all those people coming after me. I get it. I think it's wrong.
No, most parents agree with you.
Okay, good. I'm glad they do. All right. The only reason not to want to use car seat is because they shit all over them. But that's a whole other story. All right. You can tell the things that are happening in my life. Theo Vaughn. This is a segment unfortunately we're not able to get to yesterday. We had our Gaza flotilla guest, and of course we wanted to prioritize that and talk about that. So there's going to be a couple of clips that we want to talk about from Theo Vaughn and J.D. Vance appearance that came over the weekend. Some interesting moments in particular. The DNC. I'm really excited for Ryan to break some of this down for me because the DNC is just, I mean, I know it's fun to dunk on them, but it's pathetic at this point. They've got this new YouTube show, and we'll show you how many views it got. It's about how many views we get every, 5 minutes or so around here total. But what's even more pathetic is their leadership, is the guy now who's basically quiet quitting his job, the new DNC chair. We're going to talk about Taco. I missed Taco Trump. I just have to opine on that at some point. And then, Ryan, you've got some great reporting on Israel, which I'm very excited for.
Updates from the region.
Yeah.
But of course, we've got to start the show with Justin Baldoni's lawsuit getting dismissed.
I'm usually pretty into pop culture, but I really could not tell you because I feel like things switched every once. Like people on the internet was on Blake Lively's side, and then there was like a countersuit with voice memos, and then the internet was on Justin Baldoni's side.
Candace Owens is going to be having.
I know she's involved, but I don't know enough about the case. The case. As if it's
we can talk about it in the AMA.
Or whatever.
If you guys stick around, maybe we'll.
I got to be honest. My Blake Lively stock was very high coming out of Gossip Girl, but since then I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah. We haven't seen anything good. Her performance in The Town is like legendarily bad. Her Boston act, it was horrible. I'm like, just stick to Serena, okay? And you guys have your Mint Mobile money now, so just shut up. Be Taylor Swift's friend and leave us all.
No, Taylor Swift dumped her.
Did she really?
I have a lot to tell you in the
Oh my God!
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there we go. Before we get to any of the news, of course, we do have our free monthly trial going on right now. That's right. You can go to breakingpoints.com and sign up for a 1-month free trial at BP Free. That is the promo code that is available to you. It is actually going to end on Friday, so this is your last chance just this week to be able to take advantage of that. BP Free at breakingpoints.com. Ryan, I hear that you have some blackmail going on. So what's your blackmail? You're going to read his ads?
We don't do ad reads here.
Yeah.
It's a lucrative.
And we never have.
It's an
I don't
extremely
think
lucrative
people
thing.
appreciate that. I mean, we have left like oceans of money on the table as a result of, because we believe in the monthly subscription model. But yeah, please give us the blackmail.
Yeah, so if we do not get enough monthly subscribers here, Saagar and I are going to do Blue Chew.
Okay, Blue Chew. No, Manscaped. Okay, Manscaped, Blue Chew. What are the other ones out there? DraftKings. Oh, everyone knows how I would feel about that. DraftKings. Man, make sure you get the Saagar. Can you imagine the Saagar and Teddy parlay on DraftKings?
You can bet now. Will there be a parlay Blue Chew into DraftKings?
Parlay, the Blue Chew, Manscaped, FanDuel, DraftKings special.
So if you don't want that travesty.
Stake.com as well. There's I listen to so many of these. What else? AG1, and I'm trying to think of some of the other more popular. Oh, BetterHelp. You're a real man. Don't worry. You can still get help at BetterHelp. It's funny because now we're giving them free promo. But
exactly.
Everybody knows it's a joke.
Let's invoice them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other failed DTC companies out there. So yeah, extraordinary news there, Ryan, out of Los Angeles from President Trump. You know, it's actually a little bit crazy because literally moments before that announcement was made, Trump had actually given a statement where he had, I wouldn't say he had ruled out per se sending in the Marines, but he's like, I think that we have it more under control. I have a few more details that I can say. So it's a little complicated the way this is being done. Trump has not invoked the Insurrection Act. So this is from U.S. Northern Command. They say they have, quote, activated the Marine Infantry Battalion that was placed in an alert status over the weekend. 700 Marines of 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division will seamlessly integrate with the Title 10 forces under Task Force 51, who are protecting federal personnel and property in the greater Los Angeles area. The activation of the Marines is intended to provide Task Force 51 with the adequate numbers of forces to provide continuous coverage of the area in support of the lead federal agency. Task Force 51 provides a rapidly deployable capability to partner with civil authorities and DoD entities in response to homeland defense and homeland security operations. So effectively what they are saying is that these 700 active duty Marines are being placed under the same Task Force 51, which is basically now comprised of the 2,100 National Guardsmen that were mobilized by Trump previously, as well as these 700 Marines basically to supplement that mission. It does not appear, from what I can see in front of me, is that they will be, quote, trained. They have been trained in de-escalation, crowd control, and standing rules for the use of force that are similar under the National Guardsmen. Effectively, it's like using active duty soldiers as National Guardsmen here in the fort. I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm just genuinely confused because this is such an extraordinary situation. I mean, I actually cannot think really of the last time that active duty U.S. military members were actually deployed, you know, without the consent and actually without the, not only the consent, but like the invitation of the governor of a state that was already pretty extraordinary, not happened since 1965 under LBJ. And so this time around, I mean, it is difficult to contextualize. The Marines have not yet arrived. We don't really know what they're doing, but the image nonetheless is going to be, I mean, it's shocking. It's a shocking development here from Donald, especially considering, I mean, we will show people by all accounts, it does not appear to have been worse than the previous 2 days of some of the rioting or the protesting that was happening in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's less. And maybe they're like planning their amphibious landing on Venice Beach or whatever to like wind up in downtown Los Angeles. Let's start with A4 before we get into some of the other images. A4. This is Gavin Newsom saying that he's going to sue the federal government for, what on the one hand you could dismiss as, procedural or paperwork arguments. On the other hand, you could say that this is, goes to the fundamental nature of power sharing between the states and the federal government. He calls it, quote, an unprecedented power grab. He argues multiple things. One, he says the getting the National Guard deployed was invalid because there is no insurrection, there is no rebellion. It's just a protest, and that it's not the kind of protest that the cops haven't been able to handle over many decades and over the history of the United States. And he also says that the law requires that you work with the governor and that the governor be the one that deploys the National Guard. And that's not just paperwork, because what it does is it requires the buy-in of both entities. It keeps everyone together. If the government writ large is defined by its monopolization of the use of force, if you now have a duopoly where you've got National Guard, you've got some members over here who are responsible to this state actor, and then you've got another state actor that also has men and women under arms, and you're sending them into the same streets. That's not how this is envisioned to go.
Yeah, so, as you said, with some of the images, let's go ahead and put some of these up there on the screen. I'll just kind of narrate kind of what we see here. This is just some collated footage that we see. I want everybody to keep in mind that everything you're seeing here is LAPD, who, as I said yesterday, I mean, look, I think one of the distinguishing characteristics between this and BLM is that I said previously, I don't think that Democratic leaders are like really justifying a lot of this going on right now. In fact, LAPD, as you can all see, is like pretty ready to rock and roll from what we see right now. I mean, the justification appears to be that this would free up LAPD resources, but you can see here right now, this was after I believe that there was like a declared unlawful assembly yesterday. People are not heeding Crystal's warning, and they do continue to wave Mexican flags there in the streets of Los Angeles. Here we had some looting at several retail establishments. Of course, people very, very upset at over immigration detention, just like they were over George Floyd, which is why Apple stores and Adidas rep places have to be looted. But as you can see, in front of you, there are several arrests and other things that have taken place. That does look like police. This is another thing which is so difficult to distinguish when the police start to gear up in military camo. Have you noticed? This is something that goes all the way back to Ferguson with the militarization of a lot of American police forces. Like when you literally can't even tell and you have to look at the shield as to what it is. We shouldn't, overplay it either. There were a lot of peaceful protests that happened in the streets of Los Angeles. As you can see in front of you, there were marches that happened in some of the streets, as well as across the United States and several different pockets around that was happening. This is getting quite a bit of attention. These were some images that were tweeted out by Governor Gavin Newsom of National Guardsmen who were sleeping on the floor. This was Governor Newsom's critique here, saying that Trump basically, sent the National Guard in without proper planning or resources. It is funny because, not funny for the people who had to sleep on the floor, that's terrible. But actually, I do remember that this was a similar controversy here in Washington after the January 6th riots. If you remember, we were living in the green zone, Ryan, after January 6th here in Washington. And I distinctly remember walking by parking garages and just seeing like 1,000 guys sleeping on the floor in January in a cold concrete in January. They were definitely here for what exactly? So because of a QAnon riot? I feel kind of similarly about this. I mean, there's no real reason, at least in my opinion, outside of optics, but we will get to the polling for a lot of this. But I mean, I think it fits with a lot of the Trump administration strategy, inviting fights over, basically extraordinary uses of power. And in this particular case, trying to pick a fight where he does believe he feels strongest politically. And part of the reason for that is, we talked a lot about this yesterday. I'm curious what you think, is that I think it's really important to contextualize what's happening in Los Angeles, but it's also important to contextualize that probably 90% of the country has never been to Los Angeles, maybe even 95% of the country. So when you are in Pittsburgh or Detroit or Georgia or Charlotte, North Carolina, any of these places, you don't know anything about LA. All you're watching is the video about what's happening over there. And with images like this, regardless of whether you're watching CNN, Fox, or anything, you're going to be seeing the Mexican flag. You're going to be seeing some of the, or if you're on social media, you're going to be seeing some of the looting. You may even be seeing some of the peaceful protesting and all of that as well. But you are going to get the impression that things are really hot and on fire in the city. And that means that drawing attention to that and then the conflagration surrounding it at a national level is really one that Donald Trump is inviting.
And there's a bunch of discussion kind of in the center left around the question of how smart are the protests for Democrats, or how smart are the protests for opposition to Trump, which ignores the fact that it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. Like, this is not a centralized, like Soros-planned thing.
Well, you should speak on that because there is actually a lot of right-wingers who do believe that this is like massively by the way, I've always found that incredibly stupid. Like there's this theory in the right that every left-wing protest is like organized and supported by NGO. Now, I won't deny that these people don't have email lists or whatever, or bust people in or any of that. But I mean, I was living here in the city during BLM. I can pretty much just guarantee you that it wasn't because of organization. I mean, I think it was like, again, literally people being at home, mass psychosis, just believing in this cause. Whatever, fine. We've litigated that to death. My point, though, is that I don't think anybody forced my white liberal neighbors to all go out into the streets and protest for BLM. They went because they were upset. I think people are upset here, too. I think it's fine. You know, we live in a democracy. It's
right.
Okay.
And the different groups that get tagged as being central to these protests happening had the same budget 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago. Yet they weren't able to get people out on the streets.
That's
because,
right.
You can get, and you know when it's like an NGO protest, everyone there is wearing the same T-shirts. There's like 45 people. They all know each other. They're on the clock.
Yes, yeah.
So those are literal paid protesters, but nobody has the money to go beyond like a couple dozen of those kinds of people. You need an actual spark and you need gasoline. And then you get people out onto the streets. And what the Trump administration has been doing was effectively guaranteed to create this reaction and arguably designed to create this reaction because they love it. Like they absolutely adore these images that they're getting because it lets Trump do the thing he's really wanted to do, send in the Marines.
Yeah.
How
Well,
cool
there
does he
is
think
real,
that is?
like on the right in particular, there's still a lot of anger about the way that the BLM protests
They're going to restart
were
BLM.
handled. Well, I mean, you could
smash it.
It's bi-directional. Nobody's forcing people to loot Adidas and Apple stores, okay? And but every person who does, all right, it's not 2020 anymore. You don't have CNN panels talking about riot is the voice of the unheard. Everyone's like, you're kind of an idiot and you're going to jail. But I will say, on that front, that's this whole like tone policing around protesters. I don't know. I still think it's important, actually. I think it's important for opinion leaders and others to learn lessons politically and for people to recognize like, hey, this is really bad. Like, well, I mean, on January 6th and all of that, there was at least, a 2-year, 3-year period where we're like, like that didn't turn out so well for us. It ended up being fine, I guess, in the end, and people largely forgot about it. But, I mean, I don't think we could deny that in 2022, if you remember, a lot of the more like Jan 6 adjacent Republicans who ran, they all lost.
Right.
I mean, Doug Mastriano, David Perdue, remember, against Raffensperger. We had Brian Kemp survive. Like, it was important, actually, in its time to not necessarily, Carrie Lake, to appear as one of these people who seems
gave
to
Democrats
be
the Senate.
extreme. It gave Democrats the United States Senate, and that's arguably the reason that, we have, like, the Inflation
IRA,
Reduction
all that
Act.
stuff,
So many tentpole, whether you like them or not, that actually did have an impact. Sure, it didn't end up having in 2024, but anyway, I do think like that level of people advising them to be smart or whatever, I don't think it's a bad idea because sure, maybe some Mexican flag wavers are always going to do it, but it does matter to have like a top-down kind of commentariat telling people and be like, this is not good. Like you are inviting your own destruction to a certain extent. And I think people like you and Crystal have spoken up against that destruction and you're like, that's not what we want to see. So just don't give people what they want, which is generally a good rule in politics, by the way.
It's interesting though that the security forces never get tone policed. Like you never hear, not even on Fox. I don't, not on Newsmax. That say, hey, buddy, maybe you shouldn't on camera aim your weapon at an Australian reporter and pull the trigger.
I did see people criticize that at least. At least
They-
not necessarily.
they found
I don't know if it's on
something-
Newsmax.
they
By the way,
found something to
I don't
tone
watch Newsmax. Confession. But it may have been Fox. I actually have no idea.
Or like plainclothes ICE goons should stop going around masked. Because there was just this case in Philadelphia where a guy went into like, I think it's like a barber shop or something, or beauty shop or something, and was masked and dressed like a fake ICE agent.
Oh, wow.
Because ICE agents are now putting on these bandanas, refusing to identify themselves, zip tying people and dragging them off the street. And so this guy went in and he's like, I'm ICE, and he like zip tied this woman and then took like $1,000 because everyone's like, oh wait, we're not allowed to get in front of ICE or else we're going to get arrested too. Nobody tone polices the other side. But so the point is, I think this is what Trump wants, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good for Trump, as we're going to get into with the polling.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the important things that what I tried to highlight yesterday is like one of the reasons why I thought, at least yesterday, we're doing this in real time, why I'm like, I think this is net positive for Trump, is I think this is just generally on these types of social issues, whoever seems crazier usually is the person who loses. Right. And if you look at the last couple of months for the Trump administration on immigration, you had the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case, right? Mm-hmm. You had El Salvador, CCOT. You did not largely have an elevation of stories for ICE deportation raids or, gang criminals, rape, whatever. Like, that's not what the main story was. But then you flip it and you're like, oh, well, now you have people waving Mexican flags, burning Waymos in the street. Now, add looting and all of this. People may think I'm obsessing about the looting. I'm trying to highlight for you what boomers are going to be seeing in Alabama. Like, I'm trying to, I want people to really know how, important these images are going to be against for anyone marginally right-wing aligned. This is spreading like wildfire across the entire internet. And that is going to inform a lot of the way that they're going to think and behave for Republican politicians and support. Vice versa, by the way, if you're somebody on the left, I mean, I know there's massively viral images. I think it's like Kirk Russell's son, speaking back to the cops, being like, you should be ashamed of yourself or whatever. I see it on Twitter. It's got 58,000 retweets. So, I mean, look, everybody's living in their own information environment, and people should understand that. I still think we're probably in net positive territory, but there are a couple of things. The Marine image is going to be a crazy one. It's just crazy. Right? Yeah. To have an active duty United States
crazy.
Marine on the streets of Los Angeles. That's nuts. All right. I believe one of the only times in U.S. history that active duty soldiers were mobilized for a domestic law enforcement situation was the 101st Airborne in 1957 with President Eisenhower around that desegregation case. I forget exactly. I mean, it's the governor who stood in the schoolhouse door. I don't remember the name of it exactly, but I mean that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of its precedence. Another one here is this looming threat to arrest Gavin Newsom. So this is something Gavin floated yesterday. He was like, go ahead and arrest me. Donald Trump actually spoke on it, was asked about it yesterday, endorsed the idea. Let's take a listen.
Gavin Newsom he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be a great thing. He's done a terrible job. Look, I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget. What is
a crime has he committed? I think his primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job. What he's done to that state is like what Biden did to this country. And that's pretty bad. It's the wrong philosophy.
So that was Trump saying, basically endorsing the idea of arresting Newsom. Quote, I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great. Tom Homan, that's who he's referencing there, actually did react to that. And so far has said that nothing Newsom has done is arrest worthy. Let's go ahead and play it. A5, please.
Then the reporter asked me, well, could Governor Newsom or Mayor Bass be arrested? I said, well, no one's above the law. If they cross the line and commit a crime, absolutely they can. So there was no discussion about arresting Newsom. And so, what he's done, he's failed that state. He waited 2 days of that city burning and people getting hurt, officers being assaulted before he made any declaration of an unlawful assembly. He's late to the game. President Trump isn't late to the game. Men and women of ICE are not late to the game. And men and women at ICE, the men and women of the Border Patrol made LA safer that day. But you're not hearing any of this. All you hear is a rhetoric about ICE being racist, of ICE being Nazis and terrorists. And Governor Newsom feeds that.
So that's what, and he gave another interview to CNN just yesterday, saying that he's like, he hasn't done anything yet. Absolutely has not done anything yet to have
just
an
being
arrest.
a bad governor.
I mean, in a sense, I actually wonder because, I mean, I don't think he should be arrested. I think it would be pretty insane. It kind of would be the best thing that could happen to Gavin Newsom for his political career.
Come get me.
I was wondering. I wanted to get your reaction as to that because, I mean, obviously Newsom initially dabbled in kind of his Steve Bannon podcast, and he was like Charlie Kirk, right? And he was kind of trying to enter the bro sphere. But I would say during this crisis, like he kind of has, stepped up as a resistance style figure, and anything he does as oppositional as he can to the Trump administration, I do think he could be, something like this could be very beneficial to him and could change his kind of future orientation as a Democratic leader.
I mean, he likes to walk a tightrope, and this is the tightrope the kind of tightrope he likes to walk, because he wants to be able to be out on the edge, pushing back against the Trump administration's authoritarianism, but he doesn't want to seem like he's endorsing burning a Waymo car or looting an Apple store, but he does want to endorse the right to peaceably assemble and protest. He does want to push back against Trumps across the board. We're going to find everyone and deport them, including green card holders, while not endorsing criminals who are staying here. So
Right.
I think he kind of enjoys that effort to like balance all of those different things.
And as long as he is the face of like this standing up against Trump,
then
or,
that's where he
against
wants to
Homan,
be.
like, that's exactly kind of where he wants to be. I mean, this is all in the political realm. I do think, it's pretty nuts. Like Marines are on their way to Los Angeles, and it is curious too, because I mean, by Trump's own comments, he's like, yeah, I think things are calming down. And look, I understand, we just played videos of looting or whatever. I would also say in Los Angeles, I hate to say this, it's like not exactly a place where looting is particularly uncommon. I don't think it should be that way, but it's not something like LAPD is dealing with for the very first time. So this is what we see right now in terms of the situation. I guess the big jump that would have to take place next, which I know it sounds crazy about with the sending of active duty troops, the big one would be an invoking of the Insurrection Act, because the troops are still being sent under this Title 10 authority, and the Marines are still being actually placed in the same like unit as these National Guardsmen, which means they're not out on the streets like conducting law enforcement behavior. I believe like a National Guardsman can't even make an arrest unless a cop is like, hey, you should detain this person. It purely is like being able to deploy tear gas in defense or whatever of effectively creating a perimeter with shields around federal property.
Yeah, and some of the pro-January 6th people on the right are so salty about getting accused of carrying out an insurrection that now they see they kind
Everything is an insurrection.
Comically see insurrections everywhere. It's like, guys, you sacked the Capitol to try to interfere with the transfer of power. Like, there's a reason people threw the I word in there. That's different than a protest over immigration or police violence. That happens in the downtown.
Yeah,
of a
but
major
they're like,
city.
well, you're trying to inhibit like a lawful activity. Of
Yeah,
I mean,
trying to
deportation is the law, right?
But you're not trying to change the regime.
Yeah, fair enough.
An insurrection is trying to change the regime, which is what they were trying to do on January 6th by their own, not just admission, but proud. Like, that's what they were standing up for. They're going to save the Republic. 1776.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit of an IQ test.
Also,
I
doing
think,
the whole 17, your whole motto is 1776, and then you've been crying ever since that you got accused of an insurrection.
Ryan, if you are looking for intellectual consistency here, you are in the wrong place, my friend. Right? we need to read some Bell.
I'll see my way out of this.
Yeah, all right.
All right, guys, 2 quick things. Number 1, by popular demand, we are bringing back the monthly subscription. Number 2, you can get a month free, Ryan, by putting in that promo code BPFree at breakingpoints.com.
Yeah, and I think the most important reason to become a premium subscriber is just as an act of support for the show. It helps us do what we're doing. But if you're curious what the benefits are of doing it, take the free month, and you'll see you get the AMAs, you get the second half of the Friday show, you get you get the full show emailed to you earlier. It makes your life much better. Do it for a month. At breakingpoints.com, BPFree is a promo code. And if after a month your life isn't dramatically improved, you can just cancel. If it is, it's just $10 a month.
There you go.